All right. So, first things first, let's give this thing a try. It works. All right. Um, Firstly, I got to start off with an apology, okay? So, I spent 2 years fundraising, campaigning around the Midwest, telling people how ugly South Africa was because all I had seen was Welcome, the place that I live. And in my defense, those of you who have come out to visit me and seen it, it is pretty ugly. But I actually, in the last 3.5 years, have wandered away from Welcome, and it is gorgeous. As you can see in these pictures, the country is unbelievable. You drive, 100K in any direction, and the landscape completely changes. It's, 1 second you're in mountainous terrains, the next second, you're in jungle. It's unbelievable. It's so awesome, and I've had a few opportunities to go out and see nature and take it in. It's just gorgeous. Before I move on, I want to talk a little bit about culturally South Africa. So as I speak about South Africa, as I tell you about it, you need to know South Africa is very culturally diverse. Okay, so when I speak of the culture in South Africa, I'm going to be speaking of Welcome culture, okay? And it's primarily the Sesotho culture. There are tons of different cultures in South Africa, though. Many different tribes: Sesotho, Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana. Then there's Afrikaans, English culture. These are like the white cultures there, the last two. So there are many different cultures in South Africa, right? When I'm speaking from my experience with the Sesotho culture in Welcome, okay? Then orphans, okay? I should clarify, I work in orphan care, okay? And orphans are a huge problem in South Africa. Not as much as they used to be. The orphan population is going down. It was originally a problem that was caused by HIV, but the antiviral medication is doing a great job on not eliminating, but kind of subduing the incredible orphan problem that was coming from that initially. Now, from my personal experience, most of the orphans that, not most, but a large portion of the orphans that we deal with are it's a neglect issue, it's an abandonment issue, it's a problem with the culture, and I'll get more into that later. What do I do at Restoring Hope Village, the children's home that I work at? I build things and perform maintenance and keep the ministry running. I'm going to show you a few of the things I built. This is a picnic area. You can see there's a little barbecue area over there, just shelter. Clearly in Africa, it's good to be out of the sun. This is a clothing room. This whole, oh my goodness, with so many children, it takes a lot of clothing, okay? You need somewhere to put it. This was one of the first things that I helped with when I arrived in South Africa, building a place to keep all the clothing. Banks knows this all too well, okay? So Caleb Banks over here came out to help me a little over a year ago, him and my brother Ben. And while they were there, we worked on putting this pool in. So this thing was difficult, okay? I've built many houses, and I can tell you I would much rather build a house than put this thing in. It was insane, okay? I basically subjected Caleb Banks over here to slave labor while he was in South Africa. It was brutal. We were mixing cement in the hottest sun. Oh my, it was bad. It was bad. This is another thing that I built. Our mamas needed a place where they could put the younger children, put them in a safe area and shut the door and know that they were relatively safe, right? So they needed a place that's obviously shaded, sun is hot, and it was kind of a fun project because I had a little bit of liberty to do what I wanted and come up with a few fun ideas and stuff. So It's a shaded area with a little racetrack that goes along, all the way along the perimeter for the kids to ride their little bikes, and a trampoline, and then we welded together a little play area in the back. It's kind of hard to see, but that was a fun project. This is something that I'm kind of excited about. I wonder if the next slide is going to work. So this is actually a video. If you guys could get this to play, it would be kind of fun. But we created this brick making station, right? We go out and we collect soil, and we sift it, and then once it's sifted and the dirt is nice and fine, we put it in a mixer, we add a little bit of cement, and then we have this machine that compacts the soil into bricks, and we're using these bricks to build more children's houses. And eventually, we hope if we have enough of them, we can sell them and help fund the ministry a little bit with this. But during quarantine, right, we had all of this time where the kids are out of school. Quarantine, lockdown with a children's home is crazy. When they don't go to school and all of a sudden they are there all the time, it is nuts. So one of my primary roles is discipleship, teaching these kids to work. So we came up with a schedule where each child worked once a week, and we would have them help make bricks. And it's kind of a cool project, right? Because you have these orphans, and they're making these bricks that are going to be used so that more brothers and sisters can come into this ministry and be a part of the orphanage, and they're able to see, like, in a very clear way how hard work pays off. It's kind of fun. Anyway, watch the video. The boys made that video for you. Hope you enjoyed it. So, yeah, anyway. Yeah, so during the lockdown, the kids absolutely loved working, okay? I'm a strong advocate for child labor. They love it, okay? Each child is supposed to work one day a week, right? And the problem is not convincing the children to work. It's trying to get them to not work when they're not supposed to be working. They all show up every day and ask, can I please, can I work? Is it okay if I join? I'm like, sorry, we have too many. I can only watch so many at once. But they absolutely loved it. Another thing that I have been doing is when I first arrived in Velcom, there was no place of worship. Okay, there's nowhere to go that you can just go experience some genuine worship, spend some time with God. And what's terrible is the prosperity gospel is just huge in South Africa. And they put together these amazing bands, these incredible paid musicians, and you get people who are genuine Christians going to terrible churches just to hear, music. I'm like, this isn't right. Brian was like, when I first arrived, he's like, I want you to learn to play the piano, and I want you to learn to play the drums. I know you already play the guitar, and I'm wondering if you are willing to teach our kids these instruments. I'm like, oh boy, like, you realize learning the piano is not just like jump on it and figure it out and start teaching the next day, right? But it was a need. Somebody needed to jump in, so I'm like, okay. So I started taking piano lessons. I took piano lessons for 2 years. I did online courses for the drums. Drums are pretty easy, picked it up quite quickly, started learning the piano, started teaching, and it's been pretty fun. It takes generally about 2 lessons before the child is better than I am, but it's fun to see, like, specifically the kids that are just musically talented, the way they jump into it and they take off. Been teaching quite a few kids different instruments at the village, and it's just a fun opportunity to help the children learn to serve too, right? We planted this church over the last, I can't remember, I think it was about a year ago, and one of the older boys in our children's home has been helping with worship on Sunday and just teaching him the commitment with that and the blessing it is to be a blessing to other people, right? It's a fun aspect of the ministry. This is my primary ministry, okay? So I build things. I help build houses. I help build playground equipment, soccer fields. I do a lot of stuff, but it's all a means. It's a necessary part of doing this ministry, right? Working with these boys, and each one of these boys has a very unique story. Pretty much all of them have a traumatic past. No one comes to a children's home on a good note in their life, but it's just incredible to see the way God can take something that is broken and turn it into something incredibly beautiful. These kids come here, bad circumstances, and you can see this sense of innocence that is restored and given back. You can see this hope that is gained in a relationship with Jesus Christ. I think in the last 3.5 years that I've been there, 7 of the boys in this picture have made a profession of faith. And with children, you don't know, as we all know. You have to watch and see. You watch them grow, and you look and you pray for that fruit to start showing up. But man, it's hard when you work in this type of ministry to not question and say, God, why do you allow these things? Why do you allow these things to happen? This type of brokenness in the world. Do you not have the power to stop this? But I can tell you from firsthand experience that the only place that hope is entered back into the equation, the only place that healing and restored innocence ever comes back is the situations where Jesus comes in and penetrates and restores, right? The whole world is broken, but it's nonsense to question God why these bad things happen when we can look and see that the only place that hope and goodness and joy is able to be restored is the situations where Jesus comes in and penetrates the situation, right? It's been the joy of the last 3 and about a half year of my life working with these kids. I'm going to talk really quickly about a few things that I've learned over the last 3.5 years, culturally speaking, it is really difficult to learn a new culture. It's unbelievable. Learning a new language, I've been learning to speak Sesotho, extremely difficult. Trying to fit in a culture that is not your own is extremely difficult. I remember when I first got there, somebody was like, don't be too down on yourself when you don't feel like you're accepted into the culture. It'll take about 2 years. I'm like, 2 years? What? When you're used to Minnesotan culture, that's not normal. But slowly but surely, I was able to creep in and become a part of their lives and slowly be accepted. It was difficult, but so worth it. And I can say from for your perspective, there are a lot of different cultures in your lives. I don't think there's ever, I mean, in my young life, I can't say for sure, but it seems to me like the cultural gap between adults and young people in our day and age is unbelievable. It's like two different cultures. It's two people in completely different worlds, right? And it is so worth it to penetrate and work towards another culture to win them over for Christ. And it's hard. It's hard as someone who is, you love hymns and you're like, I want to listen to my music. And the young people say, I want to listen to my music, right? And it's a clash of cultures. And to love someone enough to say, hey, I'm going to come to your culture and I'm going to minister to you in your culture, that's a beautiful thing. And it goes both ways. Young people have to step up and say, hey, I need to understand this culture better. I want to minister to this culture better. It's a very applicable thing to everyone's lives. Relying on a close relationship with Jesus Christ when you are in the pits of ministry is so incredibly essential. I cannot even stress it enough. Like, you will not survive if you are trying to serve Christ and your relationship with Christ isn't on par. And this is one thing that I had to learn. Obviously, I understood a close relationship with Christ is important, right? Getting up every morning, reading the Word. There's nothing more important than that. But realizing that you cannot serve God on your own strength, man, that was an important lesson I learned over the last couple of years. I'm going to jump into the Word of God now. Open your Bibles to John chapter 8. Missionaries are not supposed to teach controversial lessons, but I'm breaking the rule this morning, okay? We're jumping in. John chapter 8, we're just going to read to verse 11, okay? But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say?" This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more." So, this passage is loved by everyone, okay? This passage is actually even loved by people who are not even Christians. Everyone loves this story, okay? The story of a woman deserving judgment and mercy, and Mel Gibson did this amazing depiction of this story, right, in this movie that he made, The Passion of the Christ. And if you go on YouTube and you look up this little short clip that he made of this story, the adulterous woman, you'll see in all the comments on the YouTube video, everyone just loves this story, okay? Even people who are not believers, they're just like, oh, I love it, okay? Save her, don't kill her, you know? But the reason that everyone loves this story, even unbelievers, is because they don't actually fully understand it, okay? The fact of the matter is the woman actually deserved to die, okay? If you read the Leviticus, if you read the law in Leviticus or Deuteronomy, you can look it up for yourself. I think it's in Deuteronomy 22 or in Leviticus 20. It says adulterers need to be put to death, right? And you can, some people go to the Old Testament law and they say, what is the test, right? What is the test? It says the Pharisees are testing him, right? And they go to the Old Testament law and they say, well, in Old Testament law, it says that the man and the woman need to be put to death. Which is true. So they say, well, the test is that Jesus is supposed to notice that they just brought a woman. There's no man there, so the whole thing's a farce. That's true. It is true. It's wrong that the man is not there, but I don't think that is actually the test, okay? Because the woman still deserved to die, according to Old Testament law, okay? So what is the test? I think the test here is, would Jesus do it? Was he going to do what needed to be done, okay? They're like, Old Testament law teaches that this woman needs to be put to death, okay? Let's bring this woman to Jesus, and if he puts her to death, the people will hate her, and if he doesn't put her to death, he breaks the law, okay? The test was unpassable. He had two bad choices. Either one is a bad choice, right? So what does he do? So he looks at the situation and he sees that there's no right answer. And he sees a greater truth that's being left out, okay? He sees the situation for what it is. He says, no one here is worthy to cast a stone at her. There's no one here worthy to cast a stone. And ironically, the only one worthy to cast a stone in this situation is Jesus himself. Jesus could pick up a stone and he could throw it and be fully justified and fine. There would be nothing wrong with that. He could stone her, okay? But he chooses not to, because he's also the only one worthy to forgive her. He's the only one going to the cross in a little while so that there was a way out for her, right? But back to these two bad choices, okay? We have two bad choices. Do you kill her or do you break the law? And Jesus rises above both of the bad choices and he says, no one here is worthy to cast a stone. And one by one, starting with the oldest, they walk away because they realize he's right, okay? And this is the application that I want to draw out of this today, okay? So since I've come back to the United States, I've realized there's one massive shift in the culture from when I left 3 years ago. And I'm calling it the take-aside culture. Everyone's switched into this frame of mind where there's this take-aside culture. It's in politics. It's in social life. It's part of the culture. Everyone says, take a side, okay? And I'm not going to get into the specifics of what sides and specific situations. And I understand that there are situations that we do have to take a side. But there are a lot of situations where you can look at it and you can see, like Jesus saw, man, I'm being offered two bad choices. Which side do I take? Which one is worse, right? And we see these, we're presented with these two choices, and we're like, you got to understand. Listen, we're done with sitting in the middle now. You got to take a stand. It's either here or there. And you're like, I don't want to make anyone mad. I don't want to offend anyone. What do I do here? I guess I'll choose this side. You don't have to. You don't have to play the games of a sinful culture. You're not part of it. You're part of God's family. You're going in a different direction. Your goals are different. You can rise above it. And oftentimes, just like Jesus saw, there's a greater truth hovering over the situation that no one is acknowledging, that you can say, no, look, there's a greater truth here. I'm not going to play your games. I'm going to go in another direction. I'm not part of this choose a side culture. I'm part of God's family. I'm following him, not any crowd or whatever. I hope that going forward, as you see these situations, as you are presented with a take a side moment, you can stop and think, do I have to take a side on this? Am I being presented with two bad choices? Or can I choose to love both sides? Oftentimes, the people who are screaming to take a side are also the people throwing rocks. And sometimes there's a situation that you can see there is wrong, but you can step back and say, you know what? I'm not worthy of throwing a stone. I understand that this person did wrong, but I can't step up onto your side and say, hey, yeah, he's wrong, because I'm not worthy to throw a stone, right? I think it's a very important thing for us as a church to understand. I was reading in Philippians the other day, and it was interesting. Paul was talking about how he was praying that they would be known by their unity. Can you imagine a church that is so united that when people hear of them or talk of them, they're like, unity. That's the church that's united in one goal and one mission. Their goal is the gospel, and you cannot separate them. They're all together. Imagine what it would take to be known for your unity. That would take something incredible.